So hello my friends, welcome back. So there's a video I produced in which I made a case for some of the demands the ODM CENTCOM must make to the president before entering any pre-election pact with UDA. My proposition was that they negotiate for the post of deputy president among a slew of cabinet slots, but primarily the deputy slots. In fact, I ventured to say that this singular demand should be a deal breaker if not granted. And some of our own people retorted by asking me that of what import is the DP's post. We'll delve into that momentarily, but before that, I'm happy to report that they got it. Just listen in.
As talks over the UDA-ODM deal intensifies, the Orange Democratic Party is now making fresh demands. TV47 has learned that the party that is now under Oburu Oginga is demanding, among other things, the running mate position in the 2027 election. The party wants Professor Kithure Kindiki edged out, promising to marshal support for President William Ruto's re-election. The party wants to field candidates in all its...
See, if we don't get to be secondary to the president, then the joke's on us. Essentially, we'll be driving into the night with no headlamps. Consequently, we must be hand in glove, tied to the hip with the president into the next elections. That's the surest way to mitigate the risk of betrayal. In his second term, President Ruto will have nothing to lose. Hence, we must negotiate. We must make a deal that is fairly or relatively symmetrical. So here's my true sense. Firing a deputy president is no mean feat. Gachagua was the aberration. But even then, the kind of political capital President Ruto had to spend to rid himself of Gachagua was so humongous. Almost a whole year was shrouded in political turmoil before Baba could step in and help Ruto steady the ship. My friends, President Ruto would not risk another tough war with his own deputy in his second term, especially from the most powerful tribe in Kenya and the most powerful political party in the nation. And secondarily, ODM is not a village younger club. Unlike the DCP, ODM is a tent with roots all over the nation, and so for the sake of dignity, it must be treated commensurately. ODM never went looking for coalitions. The jig was vice versa. Hell, President Ruto came begging on his knees, much like Uhuru came begging for the handshake. So the only compromise we ought to make is on the number of cabinet slots that we need. The post of deputy president should be a given. And lastly, we might have a lot of leverage now so long as we play our cards well. But once a president is re-elected, the balance of power shifts. Kikuyus can attest to this. There's a statement by Peter Thiel, the American billionaire, that goes as so. Political campaigns are conducted in relativity, while governance is in absolute, meaning once elected or re-elected, a president can hire and fire whomever he chooses. He can implement policies or keep promises that he likes, and there's nothing you can do about it. So imagine a situation or a scenario where we negotiate for the posts of PSS or CSS only, posts that can be dispensed with. My friends, that would be an era of great proportions. So here's the point. So my friends, to get all that I've stated above, we need leverage. Raw political leverage, meaning the more leverage we have, the more political power we wield, hence the more we'll demand. And that's a threat to President Ruto, and he'll try through all means possible to minimize, if not to decimate ODM. And if you doubt my assessment, then look over the past weekend.
And several other governors were ushered to Kakamega with 2 parallel ODM meetings. First meeting was in Mabole Butere constituency. Second meeting was in Kakamega town, each group saying they are ODM delegates, but from different camps.
Iliitwa huko Butere. Na nilipoitwa huko, mimi nilienda huko kukula kidogo lunch. Na mimi nilikuwa na waziri Oparanya, nilimleta hapa akuje aseme ya kwamba sisi tunataka Kakamega moja.
Lazima sisi tuungane. Na mimi nataka kuhakikishia bwana Pati yule ya kwamba hapa Kakamega watu wa kulinda ground ni hawa delegates.
Huyu ndio gavana, ndio mwenyekiti wa chama hapa.
So we are here to make sure you people understand where the party is coming from and where we are going.
Na wewe mheshimiwa Oparanya, nataka nikuulize ndugu yangu, wewe ni waziri. Na nataka nimuulize mheshimiwa William Ruto, huyu waziri wako
Kama anataka ukuwe na tamu mbili, ni akuje waongee na baraza.
Na baba alikuwa dereva ya basi hili, na kuna siku moja tuliamka na tukashtuka, dereva amekufa, aliaga dunia. Kidogo kidogo wale walikuwa na kiti mbele wamekimbia kwenye steering wheel, bila mtu anavuruta pande hii, mtu mwingine pande hii, pande hii, pande hii. Ngojeni, baba alikufa juzi tu.
And furthermore, it's not mere coincidence that Oparanya alluded to quitting the party and is going to quit, though he attributed it to an act of altruism, that he was doing it for the survival of the party. Were he the problem? And as if that was not enough, this past weekend, the party held 3 parallel rallies. The Uburu faction was in Kakamega, but instead of attending, Oparanya opted for a parallel rally, while simultaneously, Winnie Odinga was in Kamukunji. My friends, that script was well curated to achieve a predetermined outcome. The master puppeteer is anybody's guess. We cannot afford to ostrich at this moment. To neutralize ODM, Ruto is going to try to create a disparity in interest so that the so-called experts loaned to the government by Raila will most likely be the quintessential predator who tasted blood for the first time and nothing was ever sweeter. On the contrary, the others who've never been part of government will so desperately feel like it's their turn to eat. Thus, anything the president will put on the table, including Kindiki as deputy president, will most likely suffice. My friends, essentially the president is going to appeal to their inclination to greed. That is my fear. On to the next segment. Gachagua supporters, both mainstream and prominent, are experiencing buyer's remorse vis-a-vis their party leader. Last year, it was a given that Gachagua was the king of the mountain. Today, that fact is debatable. Conversely, the president just got a tailwind, dominating the news cycle for weeks on end now. Just listen in.
Amoyo is looting money from the people.
Looting. You use the word looting.
Looting.
Currently, as a DCP leader, when you
DCP.
Okay.
Before it was the worst, but now it's directed to the people who want to buy. You want to buy for governor? This is 10 million. And bring 2 vehicles. You want to buy for this MP? You have 5 million. And people are taken by the emotion, thinking that when you give that, the areas he is saying that he's controlling, people think we are going to be elected there.
Mheshimiwa, what you're saying is, are you saying as a matter of this is what usually happens, or this is what is happening?
Exactly what is happening.
Gachagua's political ambitions are turning to dust in his own mouth. He's charging like a crazy bull at the matador, attacking both friends and foe alike. Recently, Matiang'i was at the receiving end of his jabs. Just listen.
And I know how to make a president. There is no president you will make in a bottle. Presidents are made in the field. Sindio? So, sisi ni watu ya mashinani. And you must go and mobilize people and inspire them. And you must have content. People must remember what you say 1 month down the line. That is how you become a president.
Nimekuwa nikimheshimu, nimefanya mambo mengi, hata nimeingia kwa cell, nimefungiwa, niko na makesi mengi ambayo yanaendelea kotini. Hii makesi yote nimeletewa sababu ya kufuata Rigiji, na mimi ninasema kupitia vile, kulingana na vile niliona siku ya Saturday alienda akahongwa.
In conclusion, consequences to Gachagua's lack of emotional intelligence keep piling. I'd bet the united opposition is going into the next elections badly fractured. Gachagua will most likely be a pariah in his own faction, but here's the catch. He'll still maintain a considerable amount of sway in the mountain. At best, Gachagua is going to remain with his colleagues, but at worst, Kalonzo is going to defect to Ruto, while Matiang'i, with his minuscule support, is going to be betrayed by Jubilee, by Uhuru Kenyatta. I'll make a video to that effect. Subscribe everyone. Peace.